Coast, trying to keep them in first place or somewhere near first place. And, of course, the Olympics are around the clock. But all eyes here on the Purple football team and what will be a relatively sleepy preseason game on Thursday night as we see it. Who knows whether Joe Flacco gets out there, but if he does, it won't be for long. Meanwhile, the Carolina Panthers are boarding a plane and coming on up here to bring their defending NFC championness with them, as well as Cam Newton. Jim Szoke calls all things Carolina Panthers football. He'll be in Baltimore, hopefully not for the tourist crab cakes. It is his 22nd year ever since Carolina got that football team we probably deserved back in the 90s. But that's another story altogether. Jim, welcome in, man. Happy summer, happy football season. I know this is your time of the year as well, man.
Yeah, Nestor, appreciate it. Yeah, looking forward to seeing the Panthers get back on the field in a game situation, obviously, for the first time since Super Bowl 50, and most of the same crew is back as far as the talent they had last year. Obviously a few changes, but we're all excited to see how this team shapes up for the new year.
All right, so in the shape-up of all of this, obviously it's all built around Cam Newton, and, he got his fair share of, and I think rightfully so, criticism on not just the play in the Super Bowl, but the walk-off and the media side of that. But he was down here playing beach volleyball 2 blocks from my house. About 3 weeks ago, he was down here spotted on Twitter, and he was in Baltimore, I guess, doing some Under Armour apparel things here in Baltimore. He's also been to the Preakness before as well. He's going to come in here, and from a preseason warm-up standpoint, to me the biggest question on the Panthers is the secondary, not necessarily the offense. I'm bought in that everything's going to be fine with the Panthers offense this year.
Yeah, it really is. In fact, should be better in that Kelvin Benjamin returns, who was their first-round pick 2 years ago and missed all of last season when he tore his ACL down in training camp. So they've got a true number one receiver, and he looks healthy and 100% back from that. And you add him back into the mix of the guys that had been here, Greg Olsen, an all-pro tight end, Ted Ginn, and some others, and Jonathan Stewart back running the football. The starting 5 on the offensive line is all back. So from an offensive standpoint, I mean, the Panthers were the number one scoring team in the league last year, and no reason not to believe they shouldn't be contending for that kind of statistical category once again this year.
It is fascinating, personalities and quarterbacks, right? Like Flacco, when he came here, took a lot of criticism because he was not demonstrative, and he wasn't rah-rah, and he wasn't, waving the towel for the fans. It's totally not his personality at all, and as we've gotten to know him. Meanwhile, Cam Newton, comes out of Auburn with a lot of conjecture and, controversy, and that followed him along, and can he play? And he has had no problem at all doing the Superman thing, kissing the baby, waving to the fan. But, when things went wrong, it didn't go so well for him. Where is he on the maturity scope from what happened last year? We know the football is there. The question is the leadership and the temperament about it when things don't go well, because most things went really well last year for them right to the bitter end, right?
Yeah, well, I think the critics come from the outside, and for him, his teammates love him. So the guys that play football with him, from a leadership standpoint, they're fine with him. There's nothing that he's doing in terms of the TV and the marketing and the advertisements that affect them in any way. In fact, players typically are happy for other players when they get new contracts and outside sources of revenue. So his teammates, his coaches, all love him. It is easy, I guess, to pick him apart as far as from a media standpoint. It wasn't the best look walking off disgruntled from the Super Bowl, but you think about it at that point, they're not playing another game. It's to me, it was a moment in time. It wasn't the greatest thing he could have done, but it's not the kind of thing that should have the lasting power that it's had in terms of the constant critique, because he really does a lot in the community. He's really involved with a lot of charities, so he's well perceived in the community. He is that effervescent personality. So sometimes personalities will say or do things that aren't in lockstep with what everybody else thinks you should be doing. So, but all in all, I think his maturity's come a long way since Auburn, and he is a true leader and a captain on the Panthers football team.
Jim Szoke, sports director at Greater Media and WBT Radio down in Charlotte, and the longtime voice of the Carolina Panthers and their play-by-play, as well as color during the season. And you can find him out on LinkedIn as well, as I did. And I would say for the Panthers and the breakup of a good team, it starts to deteriorate when you go 15-1 because little pieces. But I never thought that Norman wouldn't be back with the team, and I know that comes as a shock to the fan base. But it's also speaks volumes to the way Gettleman runs that program. We wouldn't know from Steve Smith here if they had a lot of warm and fuzzies down there about keeping guys around. It's all business down there. And, when Norman sort of got out of line with contract demands, they made changes. And I don't know that every organization after a Super Bowl 15-1 would not have somehow, some way found a kumbaya with that kid.
Yeah, it was, what's interesting with the Panthers, they have a philosophy and they stick with that blueprint. And their blueprint on defense is they're investing in their front seven, and they'll get by with a little bit less in the secondary. And by that, they've got Luke Kuechly re-signed about a year ago. Thomas Davis has, a pretty big-sized contract at the other linebacker spot. And they're about to have to pay K'Wan Short, one of the great defensive tackles in the league, a new contract. So they look at the big picture of not just today, but the next year or two, and kind of allocating, where they want to pick their spots. They would like to have kept Josh Norman and had him here. He's a terrific football player, but he got $15 million per year from Washington. Well, Luke Kuechly, who I think anyone would think is not only a better player, but maybe the best defensive player in the league, just signed last year for 12.5. So how do you justify 15 to a cornerback? So that's kind of in a nutshell where Dave Gettleman came down with having to make a very tough budget decision.
What are we going to see on Thursday night? What's Ron Rivera looking for here, besides probably a little step up from some of those guys in the back end to figure out what he's got there in the cornerback position?
I think of all things, the most intrigue going into our camp is they're starting at the depth chart anyway, 2 rookie drafted cornerbacks in Darryl Worley out of West Virginia and James Bradbury out of Samford. And they're starters. I mean, day one starters on a Super Bowl team. They're the starting corners right now. As Ben Wickery is not 100% healthy, and when he is, he might be more of a nickel. And then Robert McClain, a 5-year veteran, also a guy that's not listed as a starter right now. So that, to me, off the bat, is very intriguing that a team that was one of the great defenses last year is starting 2, not just brand new players, but 2 guys who've never played in the NFL before.
1 minute you're at Samford, the next thing you're trying to figure out how to pick off Joe Flacco, right?
Yeah, and these guys are talented. Like Josh Norman, both the guys I mentioned are about 6'1". They're rangy, so they're physical corners. And we only ended up keeping 5 draft picks. We made a lot of draft day deals. They spent 3 of the 5 on corners. The other is Zach Sanchez, who's a nickel corner, more or less, out of Oklahoma. And he's contending for that starting nickel position there. But they like these guys so much. They brought in Brandon Boykin, who's bounced around a little bit with Pittsburgh and some other teams. They released him after the draft without even getting to the mini camps because they liked what they saw in these young corners so much.
So many Ravens on this team, and former Ravens, from Michael Orr and Gino Gradkowski. Ed Dixon, of course, a part of that, one of our pals around here. And even Graham Gano for 5 minutes was a Raven back in the day.
Yeah, and these are all guys who have found, in most cases, steady work here now. You mentioned Gino. He's new, and he'll back up Ryan Khalil, the all-pro center here, so that'll be a little bit of a lesser role. But Graham Gano's been a terrific kicker for about 3 seasons here with the Panthers. Michael Oher came in basically on a trial last year after Tennessee waived him, and he played great, obviously protecting the blind side, as we know. Cam Newton, the MVP last year. They rewarded him with a 3-year, $21 million contract in June, so he's here long-term. They liked what he saw. And what was good with him was, he was reconnected here with his offensive line coach that he had in Baltimore, John Matsko, and that scheme obviously seems to work very well with what Michael Oher brings to the table and what he's able to do. And Ed Dixon remains the number 2 tight end behind All-Pro Greg Olsen once again, and Dixon fills that veteran leadership role very well.
We are chatting with Jim Szoke. He covers and talks about all things Carolina Panthers. And, the offseason and the expectation of the fans. I know there was another Super Bowl many moons ago. I still talk to Steve Smith about that from time to time. But, this past year, I was out in San Francisco all week, saw all the Panthers fans out there. Everyone believed the 15-1 was going to get it done. But, I look at this Panther thing with the quarterback and feel like they're at the beginning of something here. I didn't win the Super Bowl, but I have every reason to believe at some point, and I am the Cam Newton detractor. I'm the guy that roots against him, not for him. Just sort of our WWE thing. You pick the good guys and the bad guys. I decide I'm going to boo him. But I feel that he's going to win a Super Bowl at some point. I mean, I feel like their fan base down there has to believe in the next 3 to 5 years there's going to be a championship there.
Yeah, you would hope so. I mean, they are set up to contend for a Super Bowl for what in this league anyway is an extended period of time because, as you said, Cam's just entering his prime years. The coach, Ron Rivera, just re-upped with a multi-year contract agreement. He's not going anywhere. Beyond that, we've had the same coordinators and assistant coaches are back from that Super Bowl team last year, so they're all back. And then the surrounding talent. I mean, it wasn't just Cam. They had 10 Pro Bowl selections last year. Thankfully, none of them played in the Pro Bowl because they went to a Super Bowl, but that's a lot of talent all around the roster. And to go back to when we went to the Super Bowl 12 years ago in Houston, lost to New England with Jake Delhomme and a bunch of guys that were veterans, some castaways, guys towards the end of their career. This is a team with a lot of guys in their prime that are very cohesive. It's they call it a family. It's not just a team and teammates. I mean, these guys have each other's backs, and they spend their free time with each other. They get along. So there's a cohesion that goes beyond the talent they have on the field that is kind of that intangible that a lot of teams don't have. They don't have that stability.
I guess the shared member of the family would be number 89, who is trying to make a comeback and double Achilles rupture. And I know you know Steve Smith as well as I know Steve Smith. No one's going to bet against him coming back and catching some more passes. The question is what's left in the tank. And, I mean, hey, that was the question 3 years ago when he was jettisoned out of Carolina. And I guess at some point they'll build a statue for him down there. But in the meantime, I know everyone that likes him and pulls for him, which is just about everybody that's been around him, is looking forward to trying to get him back on the field this year.
To me, Cam won the MVP last year. Until last year, I always said Smitty was the greatest Carolina Panther, and I think from a career achievement standpoint, he's still hanging on to that. I actually saw him about 3 weeks ago. We had the AAA All-Star Baseball game here and hung out with him a little bit down there. They had celebrities hanging out, and I know his rehab's going really well, and that he's such a fiery competitor. He will, as you know, will give you absolutely whatever's left in that tank. He will exhaust it and leave it out on the football field. And maybe it's a one last year thing. Obviously, it was the thinking was last year would be that year. That's not the way he wanted to go off the field the last time, being carted off. So it'll be fun to see what he's got. And I certainly would not underestimate what that is. People will probably try to pigeonhole him into being a third receiver and a slot guy, but I think he's probably still got some big plays left in him. Whatever the body is willing to provide for him, he'll extend that out there and have I think a pretty good season coming up for you guys.
Jim Szoke, longtime voice of the Carolina Panthers, joining us here on WNST. They'll be in on Thursday night for that always exciting preseason football. It stops being exciting right around the time they kick the ball off for me most years. For your team and your division and where it was a couple years ago, just trying to fight to get everybody to 8-8, the downness of the division isn't forever. Clearly 15-1 last year. Part of that was because the division was down. Who's coming to get you in that division? We've seen Tampa try to improve. Atlanta holding on with Matt Ryan now into the middle, maybe on the back nine of his career, quite frankly, the other side of that. And I guess Drew Brees holding on to the end and getting up on 40, and we're wondering how much longer they can do it. Who do you see as the second best team in the division? Because I'm ready to concede that the Panthers are the best.
Yeah, I think it's Atlanta. I think, they got off to that 5-0 start last year under the new coach Dan Quinn, and then things kind of leveled off after that. Now in his second season, Julio Jones is talking about going off for 2,000 yards receiving this year. I mean, their offense with Freeman emerging last year should be terrific, and he's a defensive coach bringing that Seattle system there. So, that year two, they're going to get it now, and it won't be all new and learning on the fly. I think Atlanta is a dangerous team. New Orleans, I just look at them once again and think Drew Brees, and where's the defense? It's just every year they just don't seem to have not even a mediocre defense, but a suboptimal defense there. And until they address that, they're never going to be a well-rounded team that can continue to challenge for a division, let alone a conference championship. I think Tampa Bay's on their way. It'll be year two with Jameis Winston. I think they took some good steps last year, going from 2 wins to 6 wins or whatever they ended up with. That's a team that could be right around that 500 mark under Dirk Cutter this year. Now they got the kind of head coach they want in place in a second year for Jameis Winston.
Hey, great having you on. Safe travels up here. Don't eat any tourist crab cakes. That's always my first recommendation when you come in here. But we hope to keep everybody safe on Thursday night. I mean, preseason's been tough. I know you guys lost a young lineman last week. We lost one last week. Every day it feels like somebody's getting dinged up here in practice. We can't wait to get the regular season started around here and try to get the whole complement of the team out there in September.
Exactly. Well, at least you have the Orioles entertaining you in the meanwhile. But, Nestor, always appreciate it. Thank you.
The first place Orioles.
That's right.
Jim, great coming on, man.
Thank you.
You got it. Jim Szoke, longtime voice of the Carolina Panthers, joining us here from Charlotte. Game time, 7:30 on Thursday night. We'll be down at the ballpark as well and staying up late with those Orioles that Jim Zoki mentioned in Oakland and San Francisco all weekend long, as well as some Olympics. I'm mixing it up. I mixed a little college football in here this week as well. And, hey, it's almost basketball and hockey season, but don't tell me that. You can find me out in the Bahia Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We come in crystal clear, whether you're in North Carolina, South Carolina, Eastern Shore, Western Shore, wherever you are, your mobile device finds us on WNST.net. Our morning newspaper hits your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That's powered up by Planet Fitness, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. You can learn more at planetfitness.com and get a little inspiration at planetoftriumphs.com. That's kind of a cool website with some great heartwarming stories about people getting in shape, and my wife's trying to get back on the playing field, get back in shape as well. Last but never least, breaking news happens first on the WNST text service. That is brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard, and Dennis will be here on Thursday driving you home, getting you ready for that preseason game with the Carolina Panthers from 3 until 5. It is the SSV on WNST. Big doings out at Greenmount Station on Tuesday night with head coach Brian Billick. You can check that out in the Bahia Toyota Audio Vault as well. Crab cakes, fun, swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry, and bringing more awareness to the Living Classrooms Foundation and our partnership there via Brian Billick and James Bond over in East Baltimore and the Maritime Magic coming up next month as well. You can email me anytime, anywhere. I am a very available individual. Nasty at WNST.net. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, anywhere you are, we are. WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.